this is the offer. This is a limited series for Paramount.
Paramount Plus.
Paramount Plus.
Going to be their tentpole, streaming service.
You're not no one without a streaming service now.
Well, apparently not, yes. Yeah.
And it's a dramatic recreation of the making of The Godfather. Wow. So this is...
Well, when you say it like that... yes, it is. Yeah, that's exactly what it is, yeah.
I mean, for a movie that it's not short of stories behind the scenes.
No, it's really not.
And this is the guy who produced it. So from what I've heard, because the information out there is limited at the moment.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean...
but there is information out there.
There is, yeah.
Okay.
The Hollywood Reporter did an exclusive little bit about it, saying it's about Al Ruddy, the producer of The Godfather, legend in Hollywood. It's never before heard stories about what went on behind the scenes.
Well, I mean, that's it in a nutshell. I mean, I suppose that's a good summation of it. Yeah, he's still alive, 90 plus.
He's 91, I think.
91.
Yeah.
He's still producing. He's just produced Clint Eastwood's last movie because him and Clint are old friends.
I think he won an Oscar for $1 Million Baby or something.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So they go way back. But and also Clint gave him his Academy Award for The Godfather back in 1972 as well. And there's a story that I've spoken to Al a few times now, Mr. Ruddy.
What's it like? Because he's proper old Hollywood.
He's the real deal, man. He's genius. He's brilliant. And he's sharp as a tack and he knows exactly how because first time he goes, he said, he's got this really deep voice. And he's like, okay, kid. He said, I seen this Bohemian movie. That was amazing what you did with the Bohemian movie. He said, what did you do in that movie? And I said, well, Al, it was sort of near the end, last 4 weeks, I came in and, they'd done a lot of the work and I sort of helped them pull it together and did the edit. He said, oh my God, kid. He said, you just scored 100 points with me, but you're too fucking nice. You're too nice. He said, if it was an American, we would be going, I fucking saved that thing. It was an absolute disaster. And they were fucked without me. And I came and I saved everybody and I turned it around. He said, but no, you're too fucking nice. He goes, you're fucked in Hollywood. But I really like you. Okay. And then he goes to me, okay, kid. Said, when you get here, I'm going to get an office right next door to you and we're going to work side by side. And I went, okay. And they went, nah, I'm just fucking with you. Okay. And then the conversation moves on a bit more and he goes, anyway, when you get here, I'm going to sit down. We're going to do some casting. It's going to be, I got some great ideas. I was like, he's like, no, I'm fucking with you again. So he just fucks with you, but he gets it. He knows. He's like, no, you do what you got to do. I'll just be, if you want to ask me anything, you just ask me. So, and then, the other thing goes, I just made a movie with Clint Eastwood. I call him the kid because he's 3 weeks younger than me. So, okay. So, yeah, anyway. So, he's an incredible man, but he did do, I mean, the thing is, he's someone in the late 60s, 70s who loved movies, who loved, TV and writing, and he worked at a very sort of he was an architect and worked at this very dry place called the Rand Corporation, which sort of did computer stuff, early days of programming, and then sort of just followed his passion and created and ended up by an extraordinary set of circumstances, all of his own making, to be quite honest, producing The Godfather.
Yeah, because they brought him in. Paramount brought him in because they were like, look, we want to make sure Francis Ford Coppola is produced properly, because they weren't sure about him at this point. It's like,
no, Coppola had won an Academy Award for Patton, which was good, but his films were not deemed, Rain People and stuff like that, were not deemed to be, particularly commercial, and they suddenly realised they had one of the most commercial properties around. So, they brought in Al Ruddy, who was their low budget expert at that point, and he kind of drove it forward. I mean, it's difficult because there are many, many stories, but I feel like I'm giving away all of the gold.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm sitting here going, I know so many stories, but you want to see them because you're putting, like, people might not know these stories. That's the thing. When you work in the industry, like, obviously, you get fascinated by the making of these things. But I want to see people watching the offer cold.
Yeah. So do I. I mean, but at the same time, the other thing is the stories are so good and what he did and how he did it and what they all did and who they were, Bob Evans and Coppola and Puzo and Pacino and Brando and Redford's in it and James Caan. I mean, they're all in it for a greater or lesser degree, and they all played the very key and important parts. And collectively, as it's a good 10 hours. It's good. They're amazing, the scripts, because I was like, I read the first two. I was like, man, this is so good. And so then I said, is there any more I can read? And they, they started trickling them out to me, and they're extraordinary, because it's like you say, the era, the film, what's wrapped around it, but then to see all these people come alive who created it. They didn't want to cast Brando. They didn't. Pacino was an unknown. It's not the way it's done. And Coppola was a risk. And, and the book was a bestseller. There was a lot riding on it. And now other studios wanted to buy it for a lot of money. And there's endless sort of things that could have derailed it and sort of did. And then, of course, there's other involvements from the people in New York, which is another really interesting side of the story that is really not known, which is, there's 5 families in New York and they took an interest. And I don't want to say too much about that, because that really is the part of the story that is really extraordinary.
Yeah, I know the bit, and that the expression on my face is like, that's nuts what happened there.
It really is.
But like you say, less said the better, because a lot of people are going to be seeing this for the first time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the hope. I mean, I think this is the great thing that I'm excited about as a filmmaker. That. It's going to be it's 50 years next year of the release of the film. It's the anniversary of that. It's really to celebrate and highlight that this incredible film, because you don't often meet many people who don't like The Godfather. It was all right. The Godfather, it's overrated. You don't come across many of those people. Yeah. I think anyone who's seen it go, it's one of the great films of the period. And that whole period of film that was coming out of Paramount and all the studios then, it was a massive sea change. There was, BE with making Bonnie and Clyde, and then Schrader and, Peckinpah and Bogdanovich and, Polanski. There's all these incredible filmmakers came out of that era and Coppola, and they changed how film was seen, how acting was approached, and cameras just simply weren't locked off anymore. 2 shot, close-ups each side and a wide, and then boom, off we go. It's suddenly the camera became something that moved and breathed. And I mean, of course, that's why everyone goes on about Citizen Kane, because he moved the camera. Suddenly it was doing things. But this is a seminal moment, really, in film history.
And I mean, obviously, Coppola, legend.
Yeah.
You're directing the making of the Godfather series.
Yes.
One of the people that might take an interest in watching that is Francis Ford Coppola.
Presumably, yeah.
Have you thought about that? What does that feel like going, shit, so Coppola might be watching my reimagining of the events that he was involved in. This is the guy who directed this is Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah. Yeah, the guy who directed Apocalypse Now and Godfather one. Look, I mean, I'm glad you brought swimming. No, I do. Of course I do. And I have to be excited by that. I have to be.
Of course.
And I am. Of course I am. It was one of the first things that came to mind when they said, look, do you want to direct it? Oh, we're working on the Saint for a long time with Paramount, trying to get that going. And there was various issues that it hit along the way. COVID kind of derailed it, and then script issues became more apparent. And when something's in development, it can
So is that
become complicated? Well,
is that on the back burner then?
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. I think it is. We sort of sat down, had a serious talk about it, and said, this is so important, and we want to start a franchise. We can't rush into it, and I didn't want to do that, and neither did the studio.
This is nice.
It is. It's a sensible move because we were right up to it, and I think the button was about to be pushed, and it's a big button, and of course, you make the best of it that you can, but you don't want to be making the best of something if you don't think it can be better. And, by going, all right, are we prudent and go, let's take a beat? Why do we, why leap blindly? And it wasn't an easy decision on any behalf. None of us all went, okay, yeah, fine, we'll just do it later. It was somewhat more protracted and painful than that. And because a lot of work and and money and effort and great people's time and energy and has got into it. So I took that hard, as you do. You know, that happens. It is part of the.
Of course, because the effort you put into something then translates into how bad you feel when it doesn't happen for whatever reason.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you know, there's a sense of could I have done more, and should I have done this, and all of those questions that you lay at night looking at the ceiling, sort of like why didn't.
The night terrors when you wake up at like 3 a.m. and like it's for whatever reason you like just want to go back to sleep, and it's like, why don't I pick this moment as your brain to force you to deal with all this shit?
Yeah, all that
right now,
all that stuff that you really have pushed to the back of your mind to get you through. Yeah, exactly. But look, it is part of the price, if you like, because the rewards can be great, but it always comes at a kind of cost.
Yeah. But I mean, like the offer, I mean, it's crazy because I think this is the first TV you've directed. And I guess years ago, there'd be that stigma of like moving from film into TV, but not anymore. I mean, like it's crazy the budgets that like TV shows have. You're talking like $15 million an episode for like Game of Thrones and The Crown.
Is that how much they spend an episode?
An episode.
50 million?
15, yeah.
15. Right,
sorry. 15.
Hang on a minute. We said 50.
No.
What?
No.
We're definitely in the wrong game.
Give it a matter of time.
I remember Band of Brothers was 14 at the time.
Yeah, that's one of the most expensive ever made.
Yeah,
I think.
That was 14 at the time. That's 20 years ago. And I remember finding that about halfway through and having to lay down in a dark room. No, but look, it shows, doesn't it? And 20 years later, that's still as watchable as it was. We don't have quite as much as that on the offer, but I'm determined to make it look like we do.